Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome back to another edition of E-Heroes for those keeping count. This is episode 308. And, I talk about legacy a lot, but my next guest helps investors with their legacy, not just in a single moment, but thinking about generational wealth. And I think that's exactly what we need to know about, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, even as part-time investors. We need to know not just about investing in today, but for the future generations. So I want to welcome Jeff Watson, and I'm honored that you're here.
Well, Rob, I think it's a tremendous honor for me to be here with you. And I mean, episode number 308, I got to tell you, that's divine serendipity. And here's why 308 is a caliber of a long range bullet. And we're going to be talking about some long range concepts today. So I just love how that comes together, if you know what I mean. So, yeah,
I looked over a lot of your stuff, and we've had conversations before. And I think in today's day and age, people are relying too much on technology when it comes to investing, and they don't know exactly what they're doing. They just let the algorithm do its part. Well, the algorithm doesn't know anything about what you really want out of your generational legacy.
yeah. Well, and algorithms are a horrible substitute for a clear, thoughtful, deliberate investment that has at a minimum a 20-year time horizon and more appropriately a three-generational time horizon. And this is one of the things, you and I have been working together. You've been helping me with this book I'm writing, Boaz on Business. And when you become familiar with the man Boaz out of the Old Testament book Ruth, you see that Boaz was thinking three generations down the road in some of the decisions he made with a real estate purchase that he made. He was thinking three generations down, and it was like, wow, you know?
And if you go back to the biblical times, I mean, that was thousands of years ago.
Yes.
You know, you try to get that concept in today's minds, and it escapes people. They're like, "Well, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Generations, 20 years, 30 years, 100 years?" They don't understand the concept, and
No, they don't. They don't.
I'm looking at it going, yes, my books are sort of part of my legacy going forward. It's my knowledge. It's what I'm helping other people do to help their legacy move forward. But when it comes to investing, I think people are blinded by the shiny objects.
Oh, oh, they're not just blinded, they become so myopically focused on them that they don't see anything else. I mean, it is this shiny object being chased by this squirrel bouncing around all over and just gets nothing done. And what I focus on, and I mean, I could tell you that I could list the names of the people who've poured into my life that have gotten me to this point, but I'm looking at making decisions that are going to pay benefits to my grandchildren. And then I'm thinking about how it is that I want my grandchildren to describe me to their grandchildren
Mhm.
and saying, well, Papa Jeff taught us this. Papa Jeff did this for us so that we can do this for you.
Mhm.
And when you're talking about, I have two granddaughters right now, ages 3 and 1. We celebrated a birthday with one of them last weekend, last Friday, and it's such that when I'm there with my grandkids, I usually get a phone call about a real estate deal that closed, and it happened again, closed another deal that I'm buying for a longer term purpose. And so I use real estate as that vehicle for long term multi generational investing. And so I'm strategic about what I'm doing. And I'd love to dig into that with you as much as you want to and that mindset that goes with it.
I learned early on from my grandfather. He was an investor. He invested in not only real estate but businesses. And the thing is he only had a sixth grade education, and he made more money than some of the people that have master's degrees. And just watching him, and I went to his mechanic office one day. He used to repair trucks. He had a business repairing trucks, but he also owned other businesses. And I'd sat there, and I must have been 7, 8 years old, and I was just fascinated with everything. But the way he thought, I mean, he was, you're playing checkers, he's playing chess. He's so far ahead of you, and it was just like, wow, you
Yep.
know. the- But as he got older, as I got older and watched him, um, the brain that he had, the enormous, thoughtful. I mean, he was just always caring about everybody else. Suffered from Parkinson's, you know, and then that all his businesses went to my mom and siblings, and it was
Yeah.
all spent, all sold off because they
Yeah.
didn't understand the power all that had.
And that is a trend that I see more and more. And I mean, we're looking at statistically and number wise right now. On right now it's ongoing already. The largest transfer of wealth in the history of the world, as the generation that preceded the baby boom generation and then the baby boom generation begin to transfer wealth out of their names and into the names of their kids. We're talking about trillions, multiple trillions of dollars moving from one generation to the next. And if there's not deliberate, strategic thinking being applied in those situations, and I'm going to wax on this about this a little bit, then they're not blessings, they become curses.
Hmm.
They become enabling foolish or addictive or wasteful behavior. And so the two parts that in my world that matter to me as a long-term investor is accumulating the assets, but then sharing the knowledge, teaching the mindset, developing the thought process of setting multi-year goals. And so I have some 20-year-old children that have begun demonstrating in their life the habit of setting multi-year goals of like, okay, I'm going to go do this and it's going to take me 2 to 3 years to get this. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, now we're starting because when you move from your 20s to your 30s, now I can get you to start thinking about not just a 2 to 3 year time horizon, but maybe I get you to think about like a 10-year time horizon. And then I maybe can get you to think about a 20-year time horizon. And that's the process is okay, so we're going to do stuff instead of a Instapot culture, standing and hovering over the microwave. We're now going to use the slow cooker and we're going to let things really develop and come together.
Right. You were over in Europe a while back, and I'm going to Europe in October. The one thing that strikes me is that many of the people in those homes inherited those homes from their relatives. So, you might have a family in a home over 200, 300 years. Here, the average homeowner stays in a house 15 years max, and it gets
No, no,
sold to
it's less.
somebody.
It's half of that, Rob. It's half of that. Statistics show it's 7 years or less. Yeah, it's crazy. And there, when you get over there, I know because you're going to be in some of the same areas I was, and it's wonderful. And you've told me this. There's one restaurant I went to. I went to it twice because the young lady running it now inherited it from her parents using her grandparents' recipes. So it's what you're talking about.
Mhm.
There's three generations right there. And I mean, charming, amazing service, fantastic Italian food. And then you understand why. With love and respect and dignity, they're fulfilling the recipes that are 40, 50, 60 years old.
let's talk about recipes because, yes, it's
Yeah.
most people relate recipes to food,
Yes.
but you take those same recipes when it comes to investing, and you show people how to do it step by step by step, and it's like, hey, here's the recipe, just follow along.
Yep.
And most people are
Yep.
like, they get bored and they can't follow along anymore.
That's it's the shiny object instant gratification that is the detriment to following the recipe. So I'll give you two examples. Number one, let's go back and look at Boaz in the book of Ruth. When we are introduced to Boaz, he's already a wealthy man.
Hmm.
But when you see how he runs his business, and it's described in some of the operational decisions that he makes in the second, third, and fourth chapters of the book of Ruth, and it's only four chapters long. And ladies love to think it's a great love story, and it is. It's a wonderful love story. But there's a blueprint to how to run a business, a blueprint, a recipe on how to run a business. And what we see is in chapter 4, Boaz had a very strategic plan to go out and acquire a very valuable piece of real estate that a relative had sold, and Boaz wanted to buy it back, knowing that he was buying it back not for himself, but he was buying it back for the widow of his cousin or extended brother. The word brother is used in scripture, but it was more like a cousin, actual family dynamic relationship. Boaz was buying it back for Naomi, the widow of Elimelech, who had passed away.
Hmm.
But Boaz was not just thinking about how Naomi was going to benefit from that land. Boaz was thinking about how Naomi's daughter-in-law, Ruth, who was also a widow, was then going to benefit from that. And then Boaz finished and sealed the deal and tied the knot by marrying Ruth
Hmm.
so that their child, by the name of Obed, inherited all of it. So there's in three generations. It goes from Naomi to Ruth to Obed. Now you're gonna be like, okay, so what's the significance of this? Folks, let me finish this out. Obed begat Jesse. Jesse's son, one of his many sons, was David, who became the mightiest, most famous king of Israel. And David had an upbringing that was due in part to Boaz being a strategically wise man of wealth that knew how to run a business.
Hmm.
Because David, even as a shepherd boy, had access to scrolls of scripture that the common person couldn't get, but David had access to them because his family had some means and substance to pay a scribe to translate it. They're saying, "Well, Jeff, where's that all in the Bible?" Folks, you got to read between the lines, because when you see David as a young shepherd talking about how he's read God's word, the law, the first 6, 7 books of the Bible in the Old Testament, shepherd boys don't normally have that access, but David did.
Yeah. And
So then we see a
speaking of
complete
scrolls,
transformation.
these
Pardon me?
are scrolls that I'm
Yep,
reading.
exactly, exactly. So generations from now, people can understand your strategic thinking in business situations regarding marketing and dealing with interruptions and dealing with people that don't respect you and all those things. That's that legacy that you've already set forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But you're traveling all over the United States teaching people.
yeah.
And if you think about it, that is your scroll. That is you going out there and prophesizing, how to live life like Boaz. And
Well,
I think it's phenomenal.
the thing I love to teach. This is the thing I love to teach, which is has to do with taking retirement accounts that are long-term investment vehicles and using some of the money that you're putting away consistently in a retirement account into a self-directed account that allows you to invest in alternative assets. And some of those alternative assets can be loans, some of those alternative assets can be buying houses, some of it can be investing in syndicated apartment complexes, and some of the syndicated apartment complexes that I've invested in that I have that I'm helping other people get into. Even today I was sharing information with a potential investor. These are long-term real estate investments that I've gone into with the mindset of my grandkids. will be making decisions about what happens with this 153 unit apartment complex in a strategic location right next to a very famous university in the state of Ohio.
Mhm.
So, yeah, why are we going to get in and out of this deal? No, we're going to be in this deal for a long time because it's going to give us cash. And so, if I had to sum this up, I'm thinking long term, but I'm using two principles: cash flow and wealth appreciation as my yardsticks for measuring, is it a good deal or not? Is it a good long term strategic investment or not? But I teach, you're right, I travel a lot. I do a lot of teaching regarding self directed retirement accounts and ways to grow that money with more control, more predictability than you can do with stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and ETFs. And I'm not saying you're 100% over in alternatives. No, I believe in diversification, but I want to be able to put some money to where I can go lend it out and make a double digit rate of return,
Mhm.
knowing it's protected by good real estate as the collateral in case something goes wrong.
Yeah, even 20 some years ago, I put money into long-term stocks, and I'm not big on stocks. I have some money, I dabbled, but right now, and it just seems like I think the long-term strategy always wins out, but people panic, and they're like, "Oh, my money's only been in there for 2 weeks, but it's losing money, I better take it out."
Right. Right. And so, yeah, I mean, it's the long-term strategy pays out. I mean, does every individual investment pay off? No. So that's why I'm in index funds. For when I'm in the market, I'm in an index fund. Why? Because I've got 500 bets spread across the pool, and
Mhm.
I know what the 70-year track record is on that pool. Now, we have to always give that wonderful disclaimer that past performance is no indication of future returns. But if American culture stays like American culture and continues to migrate and change, we're going to be okay for the next 20 years. We're
Yeah,
going to be fine. Yeah.
and wow.
Yeah. And it's a mindset that I bring. It's a mindset that I bring. And I mean, I will tell you, if I have a regret, and let me just share the regret that I have in the investing space, is my regret was that I was far too transactionally focused in the first 10 years of being a real estate investor. I was far too focused on buying, fixing, and flipping. I was far too focused on buy it, run it as a rental. As soon as I had a profit in it, I'd sell it.
Mhm.
No, that those days are gone. No, those days are gone. I buy it, it cash flows, and it appreciates, and it cash flows, and it appreciates, and it cash flows, and it appreciates. And are you getting a boring, repetitive thing here, folks? Because and do I go take some equity out? Occasionally, I'll do that when I'm going to go put that equity into another project I'm taking on, but I'm not going to go heavily leverage those things. No, I'm these are long term keeps things. Will I be strategic? If yes, if I sell something, I trade up. I
And
trade up.
I think a lot of people who invest in real estate forget about one of the greatest, things you can do is depreciate.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the tax benefits off of that are fantastic.
Mhm.
And then you got to think about it strategically. I mean, let's just talk about that for a second, okay? So tax benefits that the federal government through the IRS gives you on long-term real estate called depreciation. And this is 2024, we're still able to do some significant bonus depreciation. But if you're going to do that, remember that unless you're strategic about the next 2 moves with that property, it's really just a low interest loan that you're paying back to the IRS. But if you're strategic and you take advantage of a 1031 tax deferred exchange, or maybe you do something a little different, maybe you use a deferred sales trust if it's a big enough money to go do it. And I think you got to have about 10 million to make a deferred sales trust work. That's just my opinion from looking at them. Maybe you roll it into a Delaware statutory trust because you're not sure what else to do, and that's a really conservative way to go. But a lot of times you'll just 1031 into a better property. and then you'll 1031 into a better property. And then you'll hope that you get to do a Steinbrenner, which is that you get to die, have little to no estate taxes, and your heirs pick it up and at the current then market valuation to step up in basis. No, that's the goal of being strategic. Yeah,
Steinbrenner.
you know? And so the this is the part that a lot of people aren't comfortable about. I invest in real estate with my own mortality in mind. I invest in real estate thinking about how my kids will inherit it from me.
Mhm,
Will it be positioned in a way with operating principles, with colleagues, with cash that they can get through some of the initial bumps and surprises? Have I taught them the principles of being a long-term thinker and planner and investor? Have I lived it out? Because a whole lot more is caught than taught,
mhm.
so that if when something happens to me, they know what to do. And I mean, I had an injury and a significant health scare a few years ago, and one of my kids expressed in front of one of my friends, like the thought crossed through my mind, what happens if I lose my dad with all the stuff he's got? And my friend said, well, that's easy. You just call me and some of the other people he does business with. We'll fill you in on what to do,
But
you
you also
know?
have to take into, account due diligence because, there's so many investments out there. People, I don't think, understand what they're getting themselves into sometimes.
Well, you're right. Because once again, think about it from this point of view, Rob. We keep talking about the shiny object. We keep talking about the squirrel chasing the shiny object. And I mean, for those of you that need a visual, just go back to those wonderful Ice Age movies with the squirrel chasing the acorn, okay? That's too many investors. They're that way. What you have to think about is if I'm being shown the shiny object, I need to look past the sizzle and I need to find out about the steak.
Mhm.
And I need to find out not only about the people, the property, the paperwork, but I need to find out about the operations. What's their track record? What's their history? What have they done right? What have they done wrong? Will they talk about what they've done wrong? If they won't talk about what they've done wrong or what they've learned from it, that's a huge red flag to me in the space of due diligence. When you talk about the mistakes you've made and what you've learned from it, oh, so you admit you're human. Okay, good. Yeah.
Well, I think startups are one of the biggest shiny objects out there, and I understand that people want to help. They feel that excitement. Oh, it's the next Google. It's the next this. It's the next startups. I think have the lousiest return.
It's either that or restaurants. I'm not sure which.
So
I mean
let's
I
go
mean, they're
back to
just
Boaz. I mean, what was the inspiration for the book?
well, I had gone through some very difficult life circumstances, experienced an unwanted divorce, and so I was like, "Okay, I'm an older guy, and by the grace of God, I kept a nickel or 2 out of my divorce. Um, who do I need to become according to God's word for me to become a desirable mate in the future?" And as I was, studying the Bible, I went across the book of Ruth and I realized, oh yeah, it's a beautiful love story. It's a great glimpse into history of Israel, before the kings and in the time of the judges. But boy, I just started to see a how-to manual on how to run a well-organized, well-structured business that generated both income and wealth.
Yeah, and it's not a story that's told too much. In Catholicism or even other Christian upbringings, it's an Old Testament story, and maybe it's told more in the Jewish faith. I don't know,
Yeah. I
but,
don't know.
it's just not something that's shared out a lot.
It's not, and there's some things I want to talk about because there's some principles that apply. Boaz was a very generous man, and every one of my mentors that I've learned from that is a generous individual, God has blessed their businesses and continues to exceedingly bless their business. Generosity is a key component of running a good business. Integrity is a key component. Clear communication. If there's one hobby horse I would ride today in today's business world, it is the unclear communication that results in confusion and chaos. So Brene Brown and John Deloney, they both say, John Deloney is a mentor of mine, friend of mine. Um, clear is kind, kind is clear. One of them says one, the other one says the opposite, and they're both right. Okay, if you're not clear in your business communications to your customers, to your colleagues, to those people that work with you, you're just spinning your wheels in the mud. But when you become clear in your communication so that somebody knows exactly what you're talking about and why you're doing this, then that business has the ability to continue to move forward because now everybody's on the same page. Everybody in the marching band is playing the same tune.
Yeah. Yeah, and not to bring up COVID or anything, but I think we were in an area in society's life where nobody felt safe anymore. They didn't know who to trust, and a lot of the things that I try to do as an entrepreneur is to make people feel safe. How can they trust me? And
Yep.
so, it plays back to this, you know, I have to have generosity. And I'm not always generous. Sometimes I'm, you know,
You have there's times you have to be incredibly stingy of your time because otherwise you're not going to get anything done.
right,
Yeah.
but you're out there traveling a lot, and I see how generous you are. I see how much time that you want to put into education, and it just amazes me the energy that you have, the excitement that you get going out and sharing these messages to people.
Well, and I appreciate that. There's two messages that I want to share that I am consistently sharing. One of them is, and it all comes back to hope, confidence, peace, and freedom. Those are the four words that guide my operations today in my business and in my personal life. Hope, confidence, peace, and freedom. I want to give people hope that yes, there are tactics, tools, skills, and systems and processes out there that you can use to change your family's financial situation. I was the first one to ever graduate from college in my family. I mean, no one in my family that I can look back at and say ever inherited anything from the previous generations. That was all consumed. So I've been able to change my family tree in that respect. Not massively, but significantly. That's hope. Confidence is therefore you've got certain things that you know. And my confidence is based in my faith in God.
Mhm.
God has never failed me. He's never failed me. I failed him hundreds of times. He's never failed me. And then I'm working towards peace and freedom. I want the peace that comes from having the hope and the confidence, and then the peace of doing business the right way, the peace of having a well structured, well organized, good communications in my business methodologies so that it gives me peace where I'm not constantly going back and clarifying and putting out fires and dealing with things that were misunderstood. And then that gives me the freedom of time, freedom to do things that I want to do, the financial ability to do some of those things. And I've enjoyed it,
Mhm.
and I've decided to go back and double down and do some more stuff. And so I've gotten a lot busier. Um, and so I'm passionate about that because whether it's teaching people how to grow a self-directed retirement account, or whether it's teaching people that yes, there are specific steps you can take to become an advocate politically for your business. Political advocacy is a very big thing for me. I've spent a number of years doing some successful lobbying in very targeted areas on Capitol Hill. I've done it in the state of Ohio. I've done it in a few other states. I'm involved right now in the state of Texas, helping friends in Texas, being advocating there. And one of my clients just nailed it last week with a script I helped him write in front of a panel there in the Texas legislature. He nailed it. So we feel that when you are able to do these things, you're building that legacy, not just for yourself, but you're building a legacy for the other generations. Because if we don't stand and fight to protect the freedoms and liberties that we have, yeah, that's just as important as investing and making money. Sometimes more important.
Mm.
Then it doesn't matter how much money I make if it's all going to get taxed or confiscated.
Yeah.
If I'm told who I have to rent to, when I have to rent to them, at what price I have to rent to them, that's the fastest way to destroy the real estate empire that real estate portfolio that I'm trying to build. I don't want to use the word empire. The portfolio I'm trying to build, it'll just destroy it.
Yeah. And let's go back because, today, I guess it was today, it was the other day, one of the political candidates said, "Hey, I'm going to give or propose giving X amount of dollars for you to put down on a house." And I thought to myself, first of all, I had a scrimp and scrape to buy my own house. And my first house, I actually did a deal with the owner, and she financed it for the first year until I come up with the equity. Then we switched it out. And you know, if people really want a house, they can get creative like I did. They giving them, X amount of money for a down payment isn't going to help them or benefit them in any way.
Well, let me give you a specific example that I personally experienced. I had a long term rental property in Cleveland, Ohio, near a very large, high level trauma unit hospital on the west side of Cleveland, Metro Health Medical Center. Nationally famous. I mean, God forbid I'm in a wreck. I pray the helicopter's taking me to Metro. Okay. Because some of the best trauma surgeons in America operate there. This hospital, in order to get its workforce more stable and closer, gave a $10,000 assistance bonus to any employee buying a house within a certain radius of the hospital. When I put my house up for sale, when I put that house up for sale as part of the divorce, guess what? That $10,000 got built into the price because everybody that was making an offer was from Metro with 10 grand.
Hmm.
And so they were all just so what that $25,000 suggested idea is it's just going to shove the values up by another $25,000.
Yeah, and the people that were depending on that free money now can't afford the mortgage.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's yeah, I mean, Rob, I'm going to put it to you this way. If somebody right now is thinking about buying a piece of property, a primary residence in particular, here we are in we're going to start the fall of 2024. Okay? Do not wait for the market to correct. The market is not going to correct. The market is not going to crater like 2008 through 12. It is not going to do that. You need to grab it now because interest rates are already starting to move down and prices are already starting to move up. And part of my vast network of connections and clients and so on reported to me 7 days ago, Jeff, the market has shifted. We
Mhm.
noticed the market shift 7 days ago. So the market's bound to shift in the last 14 days. There was a big slowdown through the summer, but now it's so folks do not wait. Do not wait. Get that house under contract now
Yeah, in the
and maybe
'70s,
wait a little bit to lock your rate, but get it in there because when that rate comes down a little bit more, because I think we're going to see a Fed cut in the interest rates in the next month.
my parents, when they bought their first house in the '70s, I think the interest rate was 12, 14%. It was high. And they still bought the house because they understood that, in 8 years, the equity would increase. It'd probably be more than what that 12% was. And that's exactly what happened. And then they sold the house and got another one. And their interest rate was so much lower by that time.
Right.
You just ride it out.
You write it out. I today I underwrite deals at 9.9% interest. If the property can support 9.9, 10% interest, it's a deal.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's the number I underwrite at because I expect I'm gonna this may age beautifully or this may age like, you know, horrible, horrible, whatever, like like I don't know. I can't think of a good example for something. You'll come up with it. Um, we're going to see rates come down. We're going to watch inflation go back up. Even they keep changing the way they calculate it to make it not so bad. And we're going to see rates then go back up. And I think 2 years from now, we're going to be, doesn't matter who's in the White House. I think we're going to be looking at rates higher than they are today.
Yeah, and
And we're going to be looking at inflation higher than it is today.
one of the things that is important to me is that my kids don't get into financial debt. And I look at credit card interest rates today, and they're hovering at 30%. And there is no way that anyone taking out a credit card loan is going to be able to pay that back if they're only making minimum payments. Now, for me, I put everything on a credit card. I pay it off at the end of the month. I get my rewards, my points, whatever. I have yet in many, many years to ever pay an interest uh, point in
Hmm.
any of my cards.
Yeah,
But that's discipline. And I
it's
think
discipline.
as an investor, you have to have discipline. You can't get blindsided by anything else. And sometimes you can say, well, oh, that's a better deal. I'm going to sell this and stay the course.
The transactional cost, most people do not consider in the real estate space the cost of the transaction of selling, the closing costs, commissions, taxes, etc., and then what's left over rolling into the next deal. It's not a good deal. My strategy is very different. My strategy is I buy it, I hold it, I pay it down, it appreciates in value. I will then, through a private lender, harvest some of the equity, trying not to exceed a 50% LTV, and use that borrowed money to go into the next deal that will cash flow, that it will cash flow and appreciate and pay down. And so that it just, we work the snowball.
Mhm.
We work the snowball. Well, I don't want to go high aggressive debt. I did that in the past. It didn't work too well. You know, 2008 just nearly about killed me. I don't want to do that again. Seen that movie, don't like how it ends. Titanic sinks every time you watch it. So, and these people come around and go, this time's different. Oh no, folks, guess what? It's still it taxes and insurance and inflation and interest rates. Those are things you've got to learn how to manage if you're going to be a strategic long-term investor. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do people get a hold of you? Where do they go?
Great question. The best way to get a hold of me is go to the blog that I have called watsoninvested.com. The URL is watsoninvested.com. WATSONINVESTED.com. That's a blog. You can learn a lot of stuff about me there. You can read a lot of the articles because I do a free email newsletter. So it's worth what you pay for it, Rob. I've been doing it for 12 years, so I'm kind of starting to get good at it. Um, we try and do it twice a week. And sometimes I talk about events that I'm teaching at, some events I'm speaking at. Sometimes I just share wisdom. And some of those articles are picked up and republished. Like I've got one that's going to get picked up and republished. It's going to go out to about 40 some thousand people in the next month or two. Other groups, pick it up, get permission, and republish. And so that's the best way to get a hold of me is watsoninvested.com. Sign up for my free email newsletter. And if you've got a passionate question involving a Roth IRA, self-directed retirement account, something like that, you can book an online consult with me through that same portal.
The
Yeah.
uh, we talked about you traveling, and I believe your base of operations is Ohio, but you're always down in Florida.
My happy place is in Florida. Um, 3 years ago, I think I closed on a ugly, beat up condo in St. Pete Beach, Florida. Needed a complete rehab, and now it has become my happy place. And I'm going to make it my primary residence in the near future. Um,
My happy place is Walt Disney World, but I can't make that my primary residence.
yeah, well, somebody else already owns that. Yeah. So
But,
yeah, but I
let's
mean,
let's talk about that because here you have, Walt Disney, who created this ultimate legacy of entertainment.
yes, yes,
And so, now other people are running it. But that's how legacy works. You turn that
correct.
over to the next generation. Sometimes they win, sometimes they make bad decisions, and sometimes they have to bring back management to, you know, turn things around.
Yep.
And so every time I go there, I learn new stuff. I learn new marketing techniques. So for me, it's my happy place.
Well, Rob, I cannot think of any other place in the world that I've ever been to that has perfected the art to the level that Disney has of transferring money out of your pocket to theirs. It is state of the art sophistication. And the beautiful thing about it is they have you enjoy the experience.
Yeah, and it's always the experience, and I want people to understand that when you can create an experience behind your legacy, it goes so much further and
Exactly.
transforms more lives than you believe would.
Yeah.
And so, this book that you're working on, it's not just gonna be a book, it's gonna be an experience. And so when people, read this book, they're going to dwell into it. They're going to examine it. They're going to learn history, and they're going to see the future, and they're going to
And I
understand.
want them to change their future because of what they saw the history in the book. That's my goal. And I want to just go back and talk about the experience that Disney World is fantastic for an experience. There's other companies that I love. I know you love it. My experience 99.99% of the time at a Chick-fil A is a fantastic experience. Okay. Last Saturday, you were at a Chick-fil-A. I was at a Chick-fil-A. My experience was top of the line. Okay. And I enjoy going there. And that's another company that has been built on solid business biblical principles. And
Mhm.
so I study what they do at Chick-fil-A. And Chick-fil-A is not in the chicken business.
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A is not in the real estate business. Chick-fil-A was in the teenager business. They're in the people business. They just happen to sell chicken. And
I
they do it in a way that makes people happy and come back. They sell an amazing product at a good price, 6 days a week. They sell more than the nearby Wendy's, Taco Bell, McDonald's, etc. consistently. And I mean, I'll give you I'm going to go on a bunny trail. I saw an online ad the other day of two guys comparing, trying to sell Steak and Shake franchises. Steak and Shake's really struggled. And I know a number of places that I know Steak and Shakes that were close to a Chick-fil-A have closed down and gone away. But Chick-fil-A opens 6 days a week, just eats their lunch and their dinner. And I'm like, okay, so there's something different there. And it's once again, it goes back to the experience. And so this is the area that I'm going to tell you publicly, this is the area that I'm now working on, which is to have a better experience in the products and information and content that I deliver.
Mhm.
Because that's what's going to matter. Because if my grandkids have a better experience learning from Papa Jeff, do you think it's going to resonate? Do you think it's going to be better implanted into their frontal cortex? Do you think their cerebellum is going to retain that information? Yes.
Mhm.
And so there's an experience. It can't just be dry, boring. Well, this is the way I do it, why I do it. No, they've got to have fun seeing it and doing it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you have to innovate too because Chick-fil-A, they've innovated the drive-through experience so much that it's a pleasure to drive through. They have people that come out and take your order. You don't have to mumble into a machine, and then
They
when you go to pick it up, They have a door that comes open. It's no drive-through window. It's actually they walk out and deliver it to you.
Yep, yeah, and I mean, yeah, Rob, you and I have both been there. I have seen them. I've seen their drive-through 3 lanes wide,
Mhm.
south part of Lakeland, Florida. They've got an amazing Chick-fil-A, strong operator there. 3-lane wide drive-through. Move the car through, the cars move through there like you can't believe. My favorite operator is the guy in Erie, Pennsylvania. Casey is his first name. We're friends. 2 stores in Erie, PA. The drive-through line is double wide on both locations, and they just keep them moving, 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 moving. And they are, how shall I say this? They're aggressively friendly moving you through the drive-through line. They're like, "Move up. Come on, move up. I'm walking with you outside your car, taking your order as you're moving your car forward." What an experience. What a great customer service experience.
Yeah, the first time I
Yeah,
went to Chick-fil-A, everybody was just abundantly happy, and I'm thinking, "What is wrong with these people? I'm not used to this." You go to Burger King or McDonald's, you don't get that level of customer service. People
right.
are not friendly.
There's one chain that is close to Chick-fil-A, and it's on the West Coast. It's In-N-Out Burger.
Mhm.
And it's got some of the same foundational principles. It's family owned, privately held, third generation's now running it, just like Chick-fil-A, and it's got a biblical foundation. And so their drive-through runs pretty much the same way. They move them through. Very simple. And people are happy working there. So it can be done, and it just doesn't take chicken. You can do it with hamburgers too.
What do you think, Boaz would think about Chick-fil-A?
I think Boaz would be thrilled to look at a Chick-fil-A and see what it is. I think he would be delighted to see the quality of customer service. He'd be delighted to see the clear organizational structure. He'd be delighted to see the clear lines of communication. He'd be delighted to see the generosity that counter level people are given. Oh, I'll just give that to you for free. I think he'd be delighted to see all of those operational features and the cleanliness and the operation and the smoothness and the respect with which people are treated. And the fact that, I'm going to put it to you this way, Boaz was very clear.
Mhm.
And when Ruth first showed up in his field, he was very clear. He told everybody, "You will not harass her. You will not make fun of her. You will not bother her. I don't care if she dresses differently, if she looks differently, if she speaks differently. You are going to accept her." And he hung around and he stayed there to make sure that message was delivered. He stayed for lunch. He made sure that he fed and served food over to Ruth to show by his own actions to his employees, this person is treated like the rest of us. That's the culture you see at In-N-Out. That's the culture you see at Chick-fil-A.
Mhm. Yeah, the leader, it starts with the leader.
It does. It really does. Yep.
So, we have a few more minutes left. Any last words of encouragement? Anything that you wanna say?
Well, I'm going to say a couple of things, and I'm just, as I'm saying it, I'm saying, "Dear Lord, give me the wisdom to get the right words out." Um, I'm going to tell you, folks, there's a fifth word. I talked to you about hope, confidence, peace, and freedom, but I'm going to give you another word, and I'm going to give you the word is patience in the form of contentment. Because as we've talked about it in this recording, people are looking for the immediate quick fix, the shiny object. And that's not patient and that's not contentment.
Mm-mm.
And sometimes I'm going to speak it this way. Sometimes you're starting out and struggling. Embrace the struggle because once you've climbed the top of the mountain, you're going to remember how you grew in the valley. And that's going to give you a sense of peace, and that you were content, that you were patient, that you did the hard work in the valley as you climbed up that mountain. And I got news for you. Crops grow a lot better in the valley than they do on the top of the mountain. And so when you hit a mountaintop, great. You got a nice downhill coast coming, but you're going to hit another valley. to climb yet another taller mountain. And that's the cycle. And then teach others the same process of how to grow in the valley, climb the mountain, enjoy the experience, but be ready to do it again.
And there you go, folks. And that's what makes Jeff an e hero. And we'll see you guys on next episode. Adios.